We learned this many times over, that it doesn't always work out that way. It's not the person with the most amount of money that will make you successful as a brand as you think about expanding. But there's a lot to be said around local partnerships and understanding who in the market, number one, yes, is interested in your brand, but secondly, understands the market and has probably done some work within your particular business sector, so has some experience. So we've learned, for example, for us, partners that have been in retail or at least own some type of retail, because that's FMCG, they understand the consumer behavior in that space, but also they have access to real estate, right? They know the lay of the land when it comes to accessing real estate. We've found that people that have been in food already, so they appreciate the type of consumer that we're talking to versus people with the deepest pockets. And of course, deep pockets are necessary. One other element we've learned is because it's so difficult to deal in some of these geographies, South Africa's highly, structured. If you go to the bank, you'll get your money. If you submit your tax returns, SARS has 21 days to at least come back to you, and they'll do that. Things just kind of, even when they don't work within certain parameters. But if you don't understand that, you are going to sit and wait for, someone from their version of a municipal officer to come and sign off your store and, approve for you to open, and it's not going to happen. It doesn't work. So we had to learn, what are some of the things that work in those different markets. Your ability to tap into that local knowledge, local partners who are entrenched in those markets, who are also invested in those markets. What we've seen time and time again is a lot of franchise partners that we've have had conversations with around opening up new markets, is they just there as investors, and they probably have some kind of investment horizon, and at some point they'll leave and go back to where they came from. What you want to do is partner up with people that are actually not going to leave the country because they are from there. Their parents are there, their children are going to take over the family businesses. And so what we've found to work for us is family businesses tend to do better because of the level of investment. We have from time to time engaged with private equity firms, but only to come in as equity partners into a family setup, because we know at least there's stability, there's continuity. So it's around evaluating for you, what does your business model look like, and how do you make sure you are attracting the right local partners? Again, local being the operative word here. You have to partner with people that understand the local market, because with your knowledge of your own brand, together with their knowledge of the local consumer and the local markets and local networks, that's one of the ways that your brand can become really successful. So at lunchtime, everyone leaves the office and goes and eats at a restaurant and sits down and has a proper meal. They're very communal in how they engage around food. We didn't recognize that. So KFC is very much snacking. Yes, we've got a big sherry portfolio, but it's more dinner driven. They are more of a lunchtime consumer market. And so we've had to learn all of those things. So when I talk about proposition, is understanding your brand, but also how can that translate into a different market. Kenya, different, very similar to South Africa, highly sophisticated consumer. A lot of Kenyans actually have left Kenya, gone to study in the UK, and then gone back to Kenya. So they've been exposed to international brands. They have an appreciation for what our brand has to offer. So again, you have to understand those different nuances. If you go to Reunion, all of them identify as French. So we go and give them chicken on the bone, but in France, no one eats chicken on the bone. It's all boneless. So it's having to understand how we construct menus for each of these different markets based on our deep understanding of what appeals to them. You can't rely on, I've submitted a plan, I've done this, and I'm waiting for someone to come. It simply does not work that way. So your ability to tap into that local knowledge, local partners who are entrenched in those markets, who are also invested in those markets. What we've seen time and time again is a lot of franchise partners that we've have had conversations with around opening up new markets, is they just there as investors, and they probably have some kind of investment horizon, and at some point they'll leave and go back to where they came from. What you want to do is partner up with people that are actually not going to leave the country because they are from there. Their parents are there, their children are going to take over the family businesses. And so what we've found to work for us is family businesses tend to do better because of the level of investment. We have from time to time engaged with private equity firms, but only to come in as equity partners into a family setup, because we know at least there's stability, there's continuity. So it's around evaluating for you, what does your business model look like, and how do you make sure you are attracting the right local partners? Again, local being the operative word here. You have to partner with people that understand the local market, because with your knowledge of your own brand, together with their knowledge of the local consumer and the local markets and local networks, that's one of the ways that your brand can become really successful. The reason why we do multi-franchise business models is because we require franchises to actually invest in a head office structure. We require them to invest in all the capability that's required to run a KFC. So what I have here in Bryanston, each of my franchise partners have the same structure, or similar structure in the different geographies. Because again, to your point, there is no way we can run a Nigeria business from South Africa. We can't run a Kenyan business or Zambian business or Uganda business from South Africa. We need the people with the local knowledge. We need to tap into the local skill sets. They're more agile, they're more connected to the consumer. They understand the lay of the land more than we can ever do that. What we do is we offer the overall support. We offer guidance, so the strategy gets done here. We will determine for them what the growth path needs to look like. Obviously, they need to validate it against their local knowledge. We will provide them with rule sets and guidance on how to do certain things from a supply chain perspective. We manage that for them, ensuring they've got the right supply chain partners, they're negotiating the right prices, etc. But more than that, they run their business in their own market, so we provide oversight. I get my money. Will the franchisee in the market actually be able to pay me my royalty every month? It is a reality. In some markets, we have to sit for 60 days before we see our money. We know it's coming, but it's a cycle. Some markets, it takes long to come. Maybe by the 31st of December, it will have come. But there are complexities around moving currency around on our continent. That's the one. And then obviously devaluation is a big one. You might have to actually write off some losses as a result of devalued currencies between the time that you build them and the time that you actually get the money. Some markets, it costs them more to pay. If your royalty is 2%, the effective royalty rate might actually be 4% because of the cost of currency in a parallel market. Those are just some of the realities you need to be aware of as you think about scaling and expanding into the continent. And then lastly, the rollout plan. So yes, the numbers tell you, Stephen has told you, you can probably build 100 units in that market, but what's my path to 100? And at what point do I make a call and say, perhaps this is not the market where I want to expand in? And again, it speaks to the slow and steady in terms of just creating a path for yourself to understand what does 100 look like, and when do I think I'll get there, but where do I need to start, and what are the critical parts for myself to know that I can actually continue on this journey. Where can I actually grow? Yes, I want to go to, call it Ghana, but in Ghana, I understand there perhaps is a need for my particular product, but where will I build the stores? Does my store do better in a shopping center? Does my store do better in a high traffic environment, in a market? Can I build a store in a market in Ghana? What does the real estate access look like? What do the rentals look like? Are they dollar-based rentals? What's the cost of capital against my returns? You need to understand all of those dynamics, because then you can start to shape a business model that talks to the particular market. The other one is around the competitor landscape. Remember, you're competing with local players. So yes, you might have a really sophisticated value proposition and a really big brand in a different part of the continent. But whichever market you're going into, chances are you have local competitors, and they may not look as sophisticated, but they are local, they understand the consumer, they're probably accessible from a price point perspective. People know them, people love them. So you need to understand, what does the lay of the land look like from a competitor perspective, and therefore what is the value that I bring to the consumer? Why should they choose me as a new player in the market versus a player that's actually been around and is more local? You'll have a team that goes and opens up a new market, attracts new franchisees, does the whole recruitment, sets up units, etc. They resign. You have a whole new team that come. They also have to do the same piece of work. But if none of those strategies are documented, it becomes very difficult to start to scale up your business in a structured format. Is every time you're opening a new market, you're having to learn new lessons, make mistakes all over again. I think one of the call outs that we've learned from our brand is around ensuring continuity of the strategies that we deploy, but also documenting all the failures. Even now, as we relook countries like Nigeria, etc., There are people that have left, people who were critical in the unlocking of those markets for us. And because none of those learnings have been documented, we're having to relearn all of that again. And we're asking ourselves questions. We're saying, why didn't we go to this stage at that time? And there's probably a really good answer, but no one knows because all of that institutional knowledge is gone. So what's important is to document how you're entering markets, what you're learning, so that it's easy to pass it on to the people that then come and take your brand forward. Even small things like how you choose a franchise partner, right, is just what's the right way to select the right partner for what market? What are some of the things that you need to look at? How do you run a due diligence process on them? Interestingly, one of the markets we already have a presence, but we're looking at expansion. We have our global due diligence process, and one of the requirements, which I'm sure would be for many of you, is disclosures, right, and financial disclosures. And they came back to us and they said, why must I disclose all of this? Because I'm the one who's investing in your brand. I'm not asking you for money. So why do you need to know how much money I have and where it's sitting? And we do ask for, our DD process is quite detailed. We're very intrusive. We want to know to the last cent where it's sitting, where it's coming from, where the money is generated. We need to see assets and liabilities of all of your assets, wherever they sit in the world. So it is quite, I think for any human, it's a lot. But they came back to us and they said, sorry, if you want us to be your partners, we will not fulfill any of your global requirements because we're putting money behind your brand. And we had to kind of rethink the purposes for which we do this DD process and the reasons why we ask for all of these details. And against the context, we had to change our strategy and our approach around what it is that would satisfy us to know that these people were liquid, that they could continue to invest in our brand. So again, it's relooking some of our processes that maybe work in one geography, but perhaps in a different geography will not work. So you need to understand what is locally relevant there, what is enough that will satisfy me to give me the confidence that yes, this is a franchisee that I can partner up with. This one is around the quality of infrastructure. This is real. We turn on a tap here and you put a glass under your tap and you drink the water. You don't think twice. You just brush your teeth every morning off the running tap, don't even think twice. You land in a different market, you land in Nigeria, Ghana, they tell you do not use tap water to brush your teeth because nobody knows if it's gone through a filtration system. And so one of the things we've had to invest heavily behind, even in our own stores, is our own filtration system because quite frankly, we can't trust the quality of the water that comes from the municipality. And it's important, and those are things that you take for granted. Secondly, we complain about HCOM here and load shedding. If you're having to live in a perpetual load shedding situation where the lights just go off and no one knows where it's going to come back on, and in South Africa, we're lucky to have apps and things and everybody tells us it's going to go off at this time to come. I mean, we should be so happy because in other parts of the continent, no one does that. If it goes off, it goes off. In Zimbabwe, if there's no power for a week, there's no power for a week. Like make a plan, it is what it is. And so as we started to design our assets in our stores and think about the investment that goes into that and what the capex is that we require, is we've had to factor those things in as part of the kit as opposed to having to go back and retrofit them, because you can't assume that the infrastructure is to the level that you're accustomed to. So you have to almost future-proof your business in that sense. Legislation is a big one. I spoke about, ability to even get a trading license. You need to understand those things. What does it look like? Can I actually go into the market without a local partner? I know some markets will require you to take a local partner at an ownership level. So what does that look like? Are there people that I could partner up with that I could trust with my brand? That's important. What does it take to set up a new entity? What do the labor laws look like? Can I fire someone? Can I, if I need to hire someone, can I hire a contractor? We've just learned in another market that we're looking at now as well, that you can't hire people as contractors. You have to hire them as full-time from day one. The only way for us to hire contractors is actually hire them through a third party, but you can't hire them directly. So it's understanding all of those dynamics. And there are amazing legal firms actually that provide insights into expansion into Africa, and they get to that level of detail. The other one, very critical, otherwise there is no business without this, it's the supply chain capabilities. If you are selling donuts, is the flour in the country, can you access quality flour that will produce the donut that you're making is the sugar in the market that will actually supply you with the type of sugar that you require.